Hello? I think I'm live. It says live video is starting, so I may be starting. Okay. Oh, hello. I'm Lorena. Lorena Manzanita. Um, Welcome to Disassociation, from Disassociation to Delight. I am a sex and relationship coach. I'm a trauma resolution practitioner. I do something called psychedelic somatic interactional psychotherapy. Although, just to be clear, I am not a psychotherapist. I just was blessed to get to study this particular modality that has been pivotal in helping me to clear out disassociation, both within myself and in those I get to serve in my practice. It's not in a complete clearing out of disassociation, just to be clear, but and the more and more we can dissolve the grip of disassociation in our lives, the more and more we get to experience aliveness, connection, intimacy, delight, and joy. And so I felt moved to show up here today and just put something out into the universe. And hopefully, you'll get some nuggets, some jewels from this talk. So, what does this talk look like today? I want to first talk about disassociation. I want to normalize it, name it, unpack it a bit. What the heck am I talking about when I'm talking about disassociation? Then I'm going to share with you a bit about my healing journey around disassociation, particularly through this modality called PSIP, psychedelic somatic trauma work, that I offer. I'll share a bit about my journey, and from that, I'll extract particular tools and inquiries that you can bring into your daily life to help you notice when you're moving into disassociation and get some sense of where to go from there, right? Oh, this is a disassociation. Great. You've got a name for it. Now what? How can we bring more aliveness into our lives? How can we not get stuck in those foggy, confused, disconnected, floaty, immobilized, semi terrified underneath the fog of it all states. So I think I just started that first piece I was talking about, which is naming what disassociation is. What is disassociation? Let me put it in the context of fight, flight, freeze, survival strategies, right? So we're animals. These human bodies are organized around nervous systems that had millennia, a good amount of time to evolve on this planet, and our nervous systems are built upon mammals, reptiles, um, all those creatures that came before us and figured some things out. So disassociation is one of the survival strategies on the menu of options when we're under threat. Okay, so imagine you are a impala, a tasty snack on the in the wilderness, in the safari, and a predator, some big cat of some sort comes along. And what do? We get scared, we look around, we freeze a bit, go into alert, check out what's happening. Ooh, there's big danger nearby. Flight, right? That's what your average long-legged creature on the safari's got as a menu of options. They run. And if they're not running fast enough, and if that big cat captures them, it is a blessing. It is a service. It is nature's gift to flood the system with opioids, neurotransmitters that shut things down, that bring us into freeze, bring the animal body into a state of freeze and immobility and numbness. And so we're not as present to the exquisiteness of the pain on the threshold of annihilation. So let's just take a moment to breathe with that reality, if you will. I could feel a little bit of the disassociation here now. Like there's a little bit of floatiness that I could feel in my system. It's like on my left side, it feels a little foggy. Um, I notice my mind wanting to slow down a little bit. So let me ask you this. What's your experience of disassociation? What's your felt sense of that survival strategy that helps us get through overwhelming, terrifying, no-win situations? And those no-win situations, that no-win situation might have been your childhood, right? So many of us were subject to abuses, neglect, harms, despite how our parents' good intentions, or maybe not, maybe they didn't have any intentions, maybe they weren't available at all. Despite all that, some of us were trapped in situations where we couldn't leave because our survival was dependent on these humans. And yet we are also incredibly hurt by these humans. And sometimes the only way to deal with that is to leave our bodies, to float up to the ceiling, to go numb, to not feel, to disconnect. So, if you find yourself prone to disconnecting, if you find yourself prone to disassociating, if you find yourself getting lost in a survival strategy that no longer serves you, no longer serves your love life, no longer serves your dreams, no longer serves like basic functioning and waking up and figuring out what to do and putting one step in front of the other. I hope you give yourself some kindness. I hope you give yourself some compassion. And I hope you know you're not alone. In addition to all the humans that are dealing with devastation and loss and hurt and no win situations, we have our ancestors, we have our lineages that have gone through so much. And epigenetically, leaving was like the best option available. So I hope you don't shame yourself for that. I hope you don't beat yourself up for that. I hope you can acknowledge that and give it a little language, give it a little kindness, and give yourself some space. to be with the reality of the disassociation and let it thaw in the kindness of your attention. So, let me tell you about my journey of progressively moving beyond disassociation. So, just to be clear, I'm not totally out of it. I can go into scroll mode, I can go into binge watching mode. And if it wasn't for me progressing on my healing journey around disassociation, I wouldn't be here. I get terrified in front of cameras. I can easily go into freeze. I can easily shrink myself to a tiny little ball and not really be here in the room. But right now I am. Thank you, Ajaya, for acknowledging that disassociation is a thing, and we can all greet it with some kindness, and letting me know that I'm not alone. So, PSIP, psychedelic somatic interactional psychotherapy, I encountered it 2, 3 years ago, and it is a potent modality. It's nervous system oriented, it's incredibly somatic, it's very much about honoring our body's wisdom to almost an extreme degree. It involves using medicine, but to be clear, medicine is not necessary. The way I use it, I use legal medicines because I like to be visible without worrying too much about repercussions. I use cannabis, I use ketamine, clients source their own medicine, and I offer the facilitation. And when clients come in, when I came into the intensive and received, I just took a couple puffs and then I used mindfulness. I had the support of my facilitator and guide, and we dropped into body space and practiced letting go of all those coping strategies that distract me from the disassociation that's embedded deep in my nervous system. So for myself, that means like wiggling around, taking extra deep breaths, tuning into the person in front of me and trying to be charming. These are my coping strategies. I love my coping strategies. I hope you love your coping strategies. They are a kindness. And those coping strategies can disconnect us from what's really going on underneath. So once I identified my coping strategies, I did something called selective inhibition, which is intentionally inhibiting indulging our coping strategies. And in a PSIP session, that includes not engaging in voluntary movements like licking your lips, adding a little extra something to your breath, fidgeting. And what happens when you do that, it's like you get a direct line into how your body is surviving, how it's organized, how it's doing its survival strategy. And more often than not, we encounter freeze. And so, in that context, I've got somebody there holding a safe space for me and asking me to pay attention to how am I freezing right now? What I was discussing earlier. Ooh, I'm feeling a little floatiness. I'm feeling a little numbness. I'm feeling like the area around my belly is somehow not there and absent. So when we bring more mindfulness and slow down and viscerally connect with the experience of disassociation, in my case, it started to thin out the fog of disassociation. My mind slowed down to a tenth of its normal speed. I noticed the fogginess and the floatiness. I felt the heaviness. I felt the resignation. I felt the helplessness. I felt the stuckness. I felt the immobility. And rather than judging myself in that space, I just got to be curious. I got to surrender to the experience of disassociation. And when I surrendered and when I trusted and when I had somebody there tracking me and holding me in that space of disassociation, it started to get thinner and thinner and thinner. And what I discovered underneath the disassociation was the terror, was the like desire to flee. And so and also the desire to scream. So I noticed my breath getting shorter and shorter and shorter, and at some point, my arms started magnetically coming up to my own throat. And then this bloody murder scream came out of me, and then my legs just went brrrr, and I was like running like that impala, running for my life, running from the dangers that I had to endure once upon a time that felt like nameless terror. And I just bolted. And my body got to complete an incomplete self protective response. And on the other side of encountering that terror, on the other side of running, I found this wide open space of like freedom, accomplishment, aliveness, success. I did it. My body got to experience creating as much distance as I needed to between me and the thing that was terrifying me. Childhood, right? Um, yeah. The next session involved a lot of fight. I did a lot of kicking. Next few sessions after that involved much more screaming, punching. So, underneath the fog, underneath the freeze, you'll usually find flight or fight. And when your body gets an opportunity to move through fight and flight, what you'll find is aliveness. What you'll find is your own body's capacities to take care of itself and feel and enjoy and delight. So, that was my story. Not everybody has access to the PSIP work. I hope you check it out. And I want to distill from that model, from my experience, some things that you could do in your life here and now to help you thin the fog of disassociation, acknowledge the big feels underneath, do what you need to do to take care of yourself, and discover newfound degrees of delight and pleasure and connection and aliveness in your life. So, I'm breaking this down into skills. So, first skill, mindfully be with and name the sensations. That's a big one, and it's a thing that you could do moment to moment. Anytime you feel a little lost, sometimes you feel a little confused, anytime you feel a little disconnected, name what you're feeling, name what you're noticing, and try to not judge yourself. Just hold it with a certain amount of curiosity. Skill number 2, resourcing. Resourcing means paying attention to pleasurable, empowering people, things, places, memories, capacities, and letting yourself savor that. That is a prerequisite for doing the PSIP selective inhibition work, having some access to pleasure on a felt sense level. Again, something you could do on the daily, moment to moment. Feeling a little disassociated, look around, find some beauty, take it in. Skill number 3, identifying your coping mechanisms. What are your favorite ways to disassociate? Getting in front of a screen, future tripping, intellectualizing, ruminating, sleeping, spacing, stimulating yourself in all sorts of different ways. You get a little codependent and just do whatever somebody else tells you to do. Acknowledge what your coping strategies are. Give yourself some kindness. Tune into what's underneath that when you don't indulge those coping strategies. Let's see. Track the symptoms of disassociation and freeze. I've already gone over this a little bit, but it can be helpful to just like acknowledge, name. I'm feeling numb. I'm feeling cold. I'm feeling stuck. What's underneath that? Skill number 5, increase your capacity to be with the unbearable. We disassociate because it's really hard to be with those feelings. We disassociate because once upon a time we were in overwhelming, under-resourced, painful, heartbreaking, terrifying, no-win situations, and all we could do was leave. You're in a different situation right now. I really hope you're in a different situation right now. And if you're not entirely in a different situation right now, please get some help and get yourself out of that situation. And then when you're ready, start to work on thawing. Start to work on thinning out the disassociation, and take some time to bring some curiosity and compassion and support and some love. And if you can't give that to yourself immediately, feel free to gather others into your circle and help and get some holding to be with the unbearable. Because until we can learn how to be with the discomfort, we're just going to continue to leave and leave and leave and go for those coping strategies. Skill number 6, consciously allow your body to complete incomplete self-protective responses. Fight, flight, freeze, right? So many times we're stuck in some sort of strategy, but we're also like judging ourselves and shaming ourselves and not letting ourselves do the thing. So I'd highly recommend giving yourself some space and time to say, okay, I can't indulge fill in the blank all for the rest of my life, but this amount of time, I'm going to let myself rage. I'm going to let myself hit. I'm going to let myself kick. I'm going to let myself run away. I'm going to let myself be in a puddle and float away and not feel anything. And I'm going to give myself some compassion while I'm doing all of that. Again, if that's hard for you to do on your own, feel free to gather support. Okay? And the more and more you let your body feel those things and complete those survival strategies, fight, flight, freeze, the more and more aliveness comes through, the more and more delight comes through, the more and more you get to feel empowered and connected and capable of being here and now in this glorious and fucked up world we live in all its manifestations. And you get to choose how you want to relate to that. Disassociation is a gift. and it is a time limited gift. And I hope you give yourself all the support and resources and compassion that you need to melt that disassociation and move yourself towards another way of being and living and loving. All right. Um, as we transition, I hope you take some time to just absorb and reflect and feel into what are your takeaways. What's one thing, one doable thing you can do, one skill, one question that you can take into your life to help you thaw out that disassociation and reclaim the life force embedded in that freeze response and live with more delight. All right. I hope you find me. Yay, Doug, I'm glad that was helpful. Thank you for your words. And I feel free to reach out and find me some other time and share this talk. All right. Till next time, hopefully. Bye for now.